here today with Dennis McCoy, product agronomist with DuPont Pioneer here in eastern North Carolina. Dennis, let's talk a little bit about grain sorghum. Grain sorghum really made a big splash onto the scene. This will be its third year, and it has worked really well for some farmers in some situations, as well as finally having a viable delivery point for their product.
Well, yeah, that's exactly right. It did take off really well. One is because we did have a good market. Murphy Brown has developed a good market for it, and the other grain sourcing locations have taken suit and followed in with it. And then also we were coming off of some dry growing environments, and grain sorghum offers really good drought tolerance, and so yeah, it was just, we had the combination there that just provided a big increase in grain sorghum acres.
Let's talk about the two ways to grow grain sorghum. There's a full season option, much like corn or soybeans, and then there is a double crop option behind winter wheat.
Yeah, that's exactly right. You know, grain sorghum can be planted full season like most other crops, and you know, whenever soil temperature is 65 degrees or above at 2-inch level, that grain sorghum germinates rapidly and can grow right on off. And but then the other one is because of the increased wheat acres that we have, that we we can double crop grain sorghum behind wheat, and we can usually do that with a full season maturing hybrids all the way through in June. But once we get into July, specifically after about the July 10th or 12th or somewhere in there, that we really need to be thinking about moving a little bit to medium seed maturing season or early maturing hybrids in order so we can beat the cold weather, the early frost that we might get in October.
Mm-hmm. Now, some farmers last year were a little disappointed. Grain sorghum didn't have its best year mainly because of the weather.
Well, that's exactly right. You know, we did have a record amount of wheat acres, and so that required a lot of fellows planting double crop sorghum. And so with that, with all the rain that we had, and some fellows had up to 50 inches of rain through that June-July period, and so that just delayed wheat harvest, which inherently delayed grain sorghum planting, and so that just delayed the maturity. And we stayed cool, and we've had all the rain, and even full season grain sorghum had all that rain, and just with the disease pressure that we had, that we just didn't get the yields last year like what we had the previous couple years.
Well, and that was true for a lot of crops. It wasn't just a grain sorghum specific issue.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, fellows were all up, some were up into August harvesting their wheat. It was just totally unheard of. You know, and of course the other crops, tobacco, cotton didn't fare as well. So yeah, so it was just a pretty tough year all around for.
Well, and even if a farmer might be disappointed in grain sorghum, we really want to encourage them to look at it again for several different reasons.
Well, yeah, that's exactly right. We still have marginal soil types that, you know, grain sorghum is a good drought tolerant crop, and so we need grain sorghum on those acres. Also, on those acres, we need to increase organic matter, and grain sorghum provides a lot of crop residue. Also, those marginal soil types, you know, if you've been growing a lot of soybeans on them year after year, you build up a nematode population, and so grain sorghum helps break up that nematode life cycle also.
And if you have a resistant weed problem, sorghum can help there as well.
Oh, absolutely. You're switching from cotton or soybeans into grain sorghum. You're changing your herbicide mode of actions. You're increasing your better broadleaf weed control. So yeah, so there are some opportunities there.
Last year we ran into a little bit of a seed availability issue going into the late spring. DuPont Pioneer does not anticipate that issue this year.
No, not at all. We anticipate increased grain sorghum acres, and so therefore we project our seed volumes accordingly, and so we do have an ample supply of seed this year, and then also you know, with the commodity prices on corn and everything, it's decreasing the commodity price on sorghum. So therefore, there's likely going to be or will be a decrease in grain sorghum acres this year. So that's going to make seed more available.
Well, and something else we might want to point out here as well is that while corn may be worth 15% more, you've got at least 15% more inputs into corn.
Well, that's exactly right, and that is an advantage of grain sorghum, that you do have lower production costs. So lower seeding rates, just lower fertility rates, so specifically nitrogen. So yeah, there is definitely a lower production cost.
Now, we mentioned droughty soils a while ago, and as well as drought tolerance. Here going into spring, we've seen several long-range weather forecasts that are calling for a more typical summer here in the Carolinas.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And Dr. Ron Heininger, you know, he's pretty much the expert meteorologist in the crop science department. So he's kind of indicating that we are looking at more of a normal growing season this year, that we could probably anticipate some hot, dry weather later in the season. So that is more normal what we're accustomed to. So therefore, grain sorghum will be a benefit.
Absolutely. Dennis, anything else we need to talk about?
No, I don't think so. I think that should cover everything.
All right. Dennis McCoy, product agronomist with DuPont Pioneer in the Eastern Carolinas, talking about grain sorghum here on sfntoday.com.